All right, so here we are in the graphic organizer for our hero adventure journey folktale. Now, the first piece here is highlighted in turquoise, and this is the name of your folktale. Now, at this point in the process, you might have a name decided already, and that's great. Go ahead and write that in the graphic organizer space provided. If you don't have a name, that's okay. I would recommend continuing through the graphic organizer, and then as you decide on your strangers and dangers, as well as your protagonist, you might arrive at a great story title. So if you can't think of one right now, that's okay. The next piece is highlighted in magenta, and that is the country of origin. Again, you could choose to set your story in the past, perhaps in the United States, or maybe somewhere else in the world, such as South America, Europe, or Asia. It is okay to set your country or your location in a fictional place as well. Just remember, your story has to have occurred in the past. Now, the next section is highlighted in yellow, and it focuses on the protagonist's home life. So the first thing you need to have is a physical description of your protagonist. So think about what they're like. Are they old? Are they young? How much education have they received? What is their physical? What are their physical traits? What are they like emotionally? So think of all those pieces that you would use to describe someone. Following that, then, think about the character's home life. So your protagonist or the character that you're creating has a home, and that needs to be described in detail. So is their home nice? Are they, are they poorer? What is their home situation like? Think about the character's family. Do they live in a large family or do they live in a small family? How does the family treat the protagonist? Usually, your family's thoughts towards the protagonist tend to be negative within this type of story. Now, the reason why is because the reason for leaving home that the protagonist has to do with the protagonist selflessly wanting to better the lives of their family members. So again, the protagonist is a selfless person that wants to do great things. That's what makes these stories so much fun to write. Now, after you've talked about the protagonist, and then you have that first section done there with the protagonist at home, you're going to move on to the journey. Now, as your protagonist travels along, they're going on a journey in which they meet strangers. And this is where your protagonist starts to show their virtuous qualities or their heroic and their ability to survive. So you're going to have three situations in which your protagonist is going to meet three strangers that are going to give the protagonist something. This might be a gold coin. It could be that the stranger helps the protagonist in some way. For instance, if the stranger is a turtle, the turtle could help the protagonist cross a raging river or travel over some type of body of water. So again, that would be the situation, and then the action of the protagonist would result then in a positive outcome. So again, you're going to have three different strangers that the protagonist is going to interact with. That would be the protagonist's action, and then the result of that would be that the protagonist either gets something from the stranger or the stranger helps the protagonist overcome an obstacle. Now, as we continue on here, the next thing we have are the dangers. So again, this is part of the journey piece of the folktale. Now again, the dangers that the protagonist faces in the story need to follow a common theme. So there are three examples listed. It could be an animal, it could be people, or it could be some type of natural event. So think back to the previous video. We talked about how the dangers could be related to nature, such as elements of water. So again, your danger you're having 3 dangers that you're creating, and then each danger is progressively more dangerous, more life-threatening. So, you need to think about how the danger could harm the protagonist. Could the protagonist drown? Could the protagonist become scared? Could they die in some way? Next is the final piece of this section, how the protagonist overcomes the danger. So your protagonist might fight off a wolf, or they might jump over a river, or they might have a magical power that enables them to disappear or become invisible. And that invisibility would then enable the protagonist to overcome that danger. So again, you're describing the danger, you're talking about how that danger could be harmful, and then you're talking finally about how the protagonist overcomes the danger. Once your protagonist has overcome the third danger, that unlocks the item that they need for the fulfillment of their selfless quest. So that comes to the conclusion next. The conclusion is when the protagonist celebrates success. So at some point, your protagonist will then return back home and they will be successful. They will have slain the evil dragon or found the magic potion. Once the conclusion is done, that is where we have our happily ever after ending. Once you have that completed, you then want to think about other features. So you might have verses where the character says something multiple times throughout the story. The magic potion might be symbolic of something. You might create an illusion within your story. So these other features, these are like the bonus points of your story. These are what will make your story rise to the next level. So, this is an overview again of your graphic organizer for the Hero Adventure Journey Folktale Pattern Story. So best of luck with your writing and be sure to be creative.